Scott's coming in, Mike. What we got on the line? She's gonna check for me. Okay. Oh, yes, Mikey, we gotta wait for this. Do we gotta wait for that live feed to begin?
He's ready.
You ready? Okay. Call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Would everyone please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we have a lot of folks here tonight. We're going to try to get through this as timely as we can, but also give everyone their fair say who wants to speak. Just a side note before we begin, understand that we as Planning and Zoning Commission are a recommending body only. No final decisions on anything that is proposed here tonight is a done deal. The city council is the only body within the city that has the ability to make that final decision. We are simply here to hear questions, comments, concerns. They're all recorded. The city council has access to everything that goes on here tonight, and they will review that before their meeting. So I have before we begin, I have a few things to note here, since we have so many people and due to given circumstances with the pandemic and everything else. So I'm just going to read this through before we get started. Given the circumstances of the pandemic, we are able to allow 20 members of the public to be present in social distance within the council chambers at a time. We also have standing room in our lobby, however, that is limited. We have staff present to help with any individuals who would like to ask a question and or make a comment in regards to the agenda items being discussed tonight. Get signed up to do so. We will just have to call up individuals one at a time, bring them into the council chambers to ask their questions and or make a statement. With that being said, please listen carefully to the questions being asked, as we would like to minimize the wait time for individuals wanting to speak, so as we don't have a lot of repetitive questions. The meeting will be live streamed, and we'll be accepting online questions also, in which case we will have those questions read into the minutes, and we will all have them answered to the best we can. Once again, please keep in mind that the Planning and Zoning Commission is a recommending body. A vote on tonight's agenda items are only a recommendation to the council. They will ultimately have the final decision. That meeting will be held on September 26th, and also will be a public hearing as well. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to turn the meeting over to Mike Bailey.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So the first new business is present for recommendation of proposed revisions to Division 3 High Density Residential District, Section 15-26 Area and Bulk Regulations, to change the permitted dwelling units per acre, setbacks, site coverage, habitable floor area, exterior materials, safety improvement, and site amenities. I believe Charles is going to go over some of this as well.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Thank you for giving us some time this evening. I'd like to first start by thanking Commissioner Salmons for his 20 years of service. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
For those of you who do not know me, my name is Charles Anderson. I'm the city manager with the city. And as our building official said, in our conversations with our council over the past few years and developing our comprehensive plan update, staff has been tasked by our elected officials with coming up with revisions to our high-density residential district zoning caveats, zoning ordinance requiremements. So we're going to go through some of those, and certainly if the commission has any questions, staff was here to do our best to answer them. We're going to enumerate all the changes that are proposed. Currently, we're recommending that we increase the site area in high-density residential zoned areas from 1 acre minimum to 4-acre minimum. The dwelling units per acre, currently, it's 14 dwelling units per acre. Staff is recommending we reduce that to 10 dwelling units per acre. What we're finding on R3, our high-density zoning areas, they build apartments, they build townhouses, things of that nature. And with all the modern regulations with stormwater management facilities, fire department access, a lot of those things take up all the available space on the site. The sites are small, there's a lot of units on them, so staff is recommending those sites get larger, the number of units gets smaller, so open space is still maintained, the character of the community is enhanced. So dwelling units per building, currently you can have 18. Staff is proposing, planning and zoning, consider 12 per building. Building setback lines, doubling them. Currently it's 25 feet, proposing 50. Again, that setback would give you more green space, integrated into the communities better. Site coverage, we would propose a paved area coverage not to exceed 15% of the site. Currently, the zoning ordinance says building area can be 20% of the site. So it never really had a paved area percentage, so we wanted to clarify that for property owners and developers so they knew the limits. Side yard lines, currently it's 20 feet, proposed is 50 feet. So along the sides, along the front, it's 50 feet. That setback gets larger for these developments. Building separation, the proposed minimum distance from side of any garden apartment or from the side of any end unit of a townhouse group shall be 25 feet. That's important if buildings do catch fire. That can slow that spread because the buildings are not close together and can transmit fire. Rear yards, currently it's 20 feet. We would propose 50 feet. So there again, front yards, side yards, and rear yards are all lengthened. Habitable floor area, currently our zoning ordinance permits 450 square feet minimum for less than 2 bedrooms. We would propose to increase that to 1,000 square feet minimum. And then currently it's 600 square feet for more than 2 bedrooms. We would propose a minimum of 1,200 square feet. Exterior materials, and we do this now currently with the fronts of buildings in our industrial park and commercial buildings. We require them to have brick or masonry or natural stone. With these developments, we're suggesting the planning and zoning consider all of the exterior walls be coated with covered with an approved architectural masonry finish, block, excluding block and cinder block. So it would be natural stone, brick, things like that. We would recommend that you do that so that it improves the look and the durability of the housing stock that would get built in Seaford. Site amenities, so every development must include a community center for use by the residents with a 1,200 square foot minimum, fenced in play area and neighborhood park area with play equipment for the use by the residents, a minimum of 3 acres in area. Again, that's green space. That's so people in that development can walk to that location. If we've learned anything during some of the lockdowns and some of the pandemic issues, it's people really want to get outside. They want to use our parks. So should we require them to drive all the way across town, or do they have that locally in their neighborhood? So we also would like the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider adding walking trails, site fixtures, benches, trash cans, and other features. Again, if you want a healthy community, you have to allow them to walk, give them opportunities to do that. So interconnecting with walking trails, biking trails, things of that nature in these developments would be important. Safety and security, we would propose community-wide camera systems serving all common areas and parking areas of the site be required, and then fencing of the entire perimeter site for safety and security. Some of the apartment complexes today, as they redevelop, they install some of these things, some do not. And in working with our police department, it is much more useful for them if they can tap into those surveillance cameras, and that's a force multiplier for them. So that's one of the things in talking with our chief and his staff, if he could have access to cameras throughout the entire complex, it would help him quite a bit and his men. That's the proposed changes to the area and bulk requirements for R3 that staff is proposing. The process, let me just talk a little bit about how that would happen. If Planning and Zoning agrees and recommends to council to consider the code change, the way the code change works for the council, we have to do 2 readings. We do a first reading at council in a public meeting. Then we come back, we do a second reading. If council approves the second reading and adopts the ordinance changes, then the building official and his staff advertise it for 30 days. Those new requirements become effective 30 days after advertisement. So as an example, and the building official and I talked about it today, there really are none of these projects in the pipeline currently. So our best guess is if this moves through expediently, these new regulations could be adopted, implemented, and then we would start to communicate with developers. You have to design in accordance with these requirements, and they would go forward. Anybody who's got an approved plan prior to that change date we'd still honor the old code until they asked for change or upgraded their project. I went through that kind of quick. Are there any questions that the members of Planning and Zoning have?
Okay, Rick?
What kind of time frame?
I apologize. Can we do the commission first, and then the chairman will open it
Yeah,
up?
I'll open it up for public discussion. So, go ahead, Rick.
All the changes and additions, will we see it a second time, or how will that work? I know it's going to go to the council. If we say what we see today is okay, and the council decides to change something, does it then come back to us again?
Yeah, we can do it any way the commission would like. My suggestion would be if council makes minor variations to that, we would drive forward with it. If council remands it back to staff and says, no, we want you to make wholesale changes to this, we're not happy with this, this, and this, then yeah, I think the suggestion that staff would we'd bring it back for another review by the Planning Commission so that you're comfortable with it. But a few minor changes, a dwelling unit here or there, or a couple feet on the setbacks in one or two locations, my suggestion would be we move forward with that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. The other question I have, the site security, the cameras, is that internal to the building and whoever manages it, or does it go to the police department, or where do the cameras?
Yes and no. Okay, so what we would require would be a community-wide camera system on the complex, wherever they would decide to have their surveillance, so on and so forth. What we have found in several of them is once they have that, then our police department, our criminal investigative division reaches out to them, and we are able to interconnect with them in most cases. They have to give us permission. They have to be able to ride on our network. I'm not going to say a whole lot. Our IT coordinator's here, so I'm going to mess it up if I keep talking, but we do have several agreements with them, and we can actually view that right in our call center at our police department. So not everyone does that, but more often than not now they are allowing us access so we can view it right then. It's great for recordation of a crime that occurred, so on and so forth. So we're highly recommending that they give us that access.
And the last question I have, and I think I'm wore out, is are we going to describe the type of fencing that we need?
We are not, and we can, but traditionally, we currently have fencing requirements now. So as an example, in our zoning ordinance, if we have two different zones, and an example I'll give you is a commercial and a residential zone, that line has to be fenced. It can also have a buffer installed, a planted vegetated buffer, and the code talks about how wide, how many plantings. But traditionally, we allow the developer to choose what he would like to do. There's several that we do. If it needs to be a screening fence, it has to be like a wood stockade fence so you can't see through it. But we give the developer some latitude. Okay. We're seeing a lot of vinyl now. We're seeing a lot of wood fencing, but we don't specifically say it must be 10 feet tall, must be wood.
Okay. I'm done.
Hey, Rick? Anyone else in the commission have questions? Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up to questions from the public. All right, so in order to ask a question, you need to come to the microphone here and be recorded. And when you come up, I need you to state your name and your address. So at this time, I'll entertain questions or comments from the public. Ma'am, would you like to be first? You want to go to them with the microphone, or?
We're just doing the item that he presented right now for questions, correct?
Yes.
Okay, given that the 104 apartments that are now approved on the 7.7 acres adjoining Governor's Grant, that they would not be bound by any of these regulations because that approval for the R3 was in place in 2006. So they would be exempt, is that correct?
Is that the end of your question?
I have other issues too,
Okay, let me
I mean,
answer.
along the same line.
Okay, and let me try to answer it. And you're talking about the R3 zoned area in Bel Air.
No, it's
In
actually-
Governor's Grant.
It's not a part of our division, it's a separate entity.
Okay,
Owned by
yep.
SNL Corporation.
Yep. Okay, and I'm going to ask Mike to help me. They don't have an approved site plan for that development at this point. They have a preliminary plan. Okay, so they don't have final plan approval. So my interpretation, if this were adopted, I want Mike to agree with me, before final plan came in, they would have to meet the new requirements. Do you agree? Okay.
Along the same lines, the 77 townhouses that are to be added to the existing 39 townhouses in Bel Air.
In Bel Air.
The ones that are presently there with an expansion, additional 77. That was approved with final site plan as of January 2020. So they would be exempt because the final.
That is correct.
Okay.
You interpret it correctly. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Now, this proposal that's before us today, of course, unless if it's approved, say, by the 22nd, then it would be exempt because you don't have those rules in place.
That is not correct.
In
Again,
other words, the petition to make the 132 townhomes.
yeah, that is not correct because again, they need final plan approval. So
Right, so
if,
they would not be bound, and if they're in place when they get final approval, if they're already got the final plan, but, okay, which,
okay, let me sum it up this way. If they currently have final plan approval,
Right.
they're grandfathered when the code
Right,
changes,
right.
to use a common term.
Right.
Okay, if they're not, if they're in the plan approval process, they would have to meet the requirements before final plan approval. Now, let me say this, traditionally what happens in a code change, because code changes are a big deal, okay? So traditionally, what the council has the power to do is, and they do it sometimes, is they give a date out, like let's just say the first of 2021. That gives the development community the understanding, you know,
to make adjustments.
yeah, they don't want to surprise them. They want to say, okay, we're telegraphing to you, we're going to change this, but we're giving you a grace period to finish up your plans so you know the rules you're playing with. Council has the authority to do that and can do that. But again, right now, there's no one in the pipeline. The building official did that review. Just, we didn't want to catch anybody off guard.
Okay, that answers my question.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak?
If you can please state your name and address prior to speaking as well.
Charlotte Wilson, 629 Rosemary Drive in Bel Air. I live in the townhouse. I actually own it. I'm the HOA president, by the way. So I have concerns. You said you're going to put up security cameras. And with the security cameras, you said you're going to have, you're going to leave it to them to regulate it along with the police department? I misunderstood that part because I know he had asked the question about who's going to have access to them.
Right, so what would happen, as an example, in your development, we would make the requirement you have security cameras. So you would
Okay.
have to install them in accordance with our requirements. And what we would do, what we've done in the ones we've been exposed to, the common areas, the parking areas, things like that, get surveilled. And your HOA, the owner of the development, is responsible for maintaining that equipment, putting it into place, keeping it live, so on and so forth. If the homeowners association, the owner of the property, agrees to allow access to the city for our surveillance, to intercommunicate with our surveillance system, we have an agreement we can work out for that. Not everybody allows us to do that. This ordinance does not contemplate you must do it. It just says you must have surveillance on your site.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I think that's a wonderful idea, but I'm just wondering who's going to pay for the expense of it.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, okay? The way it's happened in the past, and again, I have our IT coordinator here, so he's going to correct me again. When you construct the complex, the property, that's a cost of construction to put it on the site, a local area network. When you interconnect with us, then there are obviously costs associated with licensed seats, things of that nature. Those are discussions that we have at that time. It's a case-by-case basis. Some developments are very close to our network, easy to connect to. Our people can do it. Some are very far away and need a construction of a utility, a pole line to get out there, a wireless gateway to communicate with them. So each case is so different, we would work those costs out with the groups.
So with that being said, I understand that it's going to be like going to different places. Where would that actually be located? Would that be in somebody's home, or are they going to build a separate facility there?
The surveillance?
The surveillance.
Yeah.
Are they going to build a separate
Okay.
facility?
So if you reside on the city network, the city has a fiber optic network that we communicate with all of our devices out in the field, our lift stations, so on and so forth. Part of that, we can have traffic it comes across fiber optic, and then we can pipe it back to our police station. And we have a call center there.
Okay.
And the chief's plan is to have TVs like this, and that call center currently is manned 24 hours a day with a person, a call taker, and they would be responsible for kind of monitoring that at that public facility, at the police department. They also have access to it in our criminal investigations division, which is in the basement of the building. Does that make sense? It doesn't go to anyone's home. It's a secure
Okay.
network. Yeah, we don't, regular staff, I don't have access to that.
Okay.
Only sworn officers and their staff.
All right. Well, thank you. That was it for me right now.
My name's Dawn Evans, 601 Rosemary Drive. I want to find out, are you going to hire more police?
We,
I mean, we have no presence now, and you're going to add more townhouses,
okay,
and we don't see police at all.
okay. We currently have a complement of 29 officers that are budgeted, okay? Right now, we are not at that amount of officers, though, okay? We have one in the academy right now, and there are issues with people that leave us sometimes, so on and so forth. But our goal is to get to 29 sworn officers. That's the entire force that we have. We're working with the chief, and he would like to add more. He would like to add a K-9 unit. He would like to add a lot of things. There are budgetary constraints that we have, though, but that is our staff that we have budgeted is 29 officers.
And when you do this upgrade in our neighborhood, are you going to fix the flooding
What
and the drainage?
What upgrade are you talking about?
The new townhouses.
There's no new townhouses as of today that have been approved. Okay, the only ones right now that have been through the approval process are the ones that exist in Bel Air around your community. And that, we haven't seen final plans on that and what they're doing at this point, correct?
They submitted for a building permit, but they need some more information.
And is it going to be townhouses, or we're going to have apartments?
It'll be townhomes similar to what you have now, and this was already approved in January.
Part of the problem in your development, the Bel Air and Governor's Grant development with drainage, and it is a real problem, okay? That development's never been finished. The second phase of the single-family homes is really nothing more right now than a field. No infrastructure's been put in there. So if that can be finished, I think a lot of the grading and drainage will be improved. Does that help?
Yeah, all they did is lay blacktop over in front of our house, floods every time it rains.
Okay. I mean, just offline, if maybe Mike and I could come look at it, and we'll see if we can help you individually on that situation. Okay?
Hang on one second. Hang on one second. All right. Let us, give us a chance to just clean the mic in between and everything else.
There you go.
I'm married to him.
We got 3 shelters that
Oh, they're not
house.
here about the shelters.
into that?
Yeah, no, we're just gonna entertain questions, based on our new business items for tonight. Sorry.
No, I'll help. Anyone else?
Okay, so it appears that we've covered the questions or comments from the public, on this first item. Are we gonna wait for some online stuff here? We have none? Okay, all right, Mike?
All right, so we're moving on to new business number 2. This is for Bel Air Investments LLC, located at Danfield Drive, Bristol Drive, Chatham Drive, Terry Street, and Banbury Street. This encompasses several tax parcel numbers, those being 531-10-407.00 through 464.00. Zoning is R1, low-density residential, and they are requesting to rezone 51 single-family lots from R1, low-density residential, to R3, high-density residential, to accommodate the proposed building of 132 townhomes. This is the area in question. It's off Google. I've outlined it there in red. As Charles alluded to earlier, it's basically a farm field currently. There's no streets installed, no infrastructure. It's just a field currently. It's unfinished. This is the survey of the area that shows what lots currently exist. They're highlighted there in yellow, with the streets in white. So that's just another picture that we got from the applicant showing the lots considered for rezoning. I'm sorry. Just another, the rezoning would comply with our current comprehensive plan. It's that whole area is outlined for residential. So R1 and R3 is all residential, so it does comply with the current comprehensive plan.
We can't hear.
I'm sorry.
You wanna,
Yeah, is there any questions?
say that again, just so they hear.
Okay, just information that the area proposed for rezoning does comply with the current comprehensive plan. It's all outlined on the map for residential.
Okay. Rick, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the rezoning request for item number 2 will meet today's code.
Yes, but they'll have to resurvey the area and
Right.
combine all those lots, but yes, the area presented total, yes, would meet the current code.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm asking a question for someone that asked me. Can you go back to your first slide on this particular one? All right, so my question that was presented to me is, someone that lives in, not Bel Air, what's the next one down? Governor's Grant.
Governor's Grant.
Yes.
Just to the top side of that.
Yes, that's all those right there. Was there any plan, I don't remember any plan of Governor's Grant being connected to Bel Air. Is there a plan?
There's one street, and it's the dark green area through the red there. Chatham Drive is supposed to interconnect at some point in the future.
Okay.
It doesn't exist now. Can I ask this question?
What,
Wait, ma'am.
Ma'am, wait for the public, and then we'll get to you. So what has to happen prior, is there a plan laid out? Does certain amount of building have to be done, completed, or when does that happen, I guess is my question.
On the Governor's Grant side, I believe that they would build to their property line in that R3 zone, once he has some streets to build in there. And then they would connect it once this phase would be built out, and they would just meet it up.
That's not true.
Okay.
Can we make a
Not-
clarification?
We'll get to you, ma'am. We'll get to you. You'll have your chance. Okay, so, all right, I think that helps. Hopefully that answers the question that I was asked. Any other questions from the commission?
I just have one. They want
Stacy?
to go from 51 single-family lots to 132 townhouse units. That's a large increase. Okay, I just want to make sure I had these.
Yeah,
numbers
that's
I
the
just-
correct, that's what was
that's
applied.
a big jump there for me.
Okay, anyone else up here have a question or comment? We're good? We're good? All right, now we will entertain questions from the public. Raise your hand and I'll call on you as best I can. So let's go right up front here first.
Please be sure to state your name and your address prior to speaking.
Thank you. Jerry Dorsey. I'm new to this area by 3 months. I live on the corner of Bel Air and Magnolia. For my clarification, these areas here are the 77 townhouses you're talking about that have been approved?
Correct, sir.
These are the 132 future dream that you want, somebody wants?
Yes, they're proposed to.
That's what I need. Thank you.
All right, show of hands for the next person. I'm gonna go in the back, middle. I'm gonna go in the back, middle first. Or never mind, sorry.
Let me get up front. My name is Charlotte Wayne, and I'm at 315 Plantation Drive in Governor's Grant. As we look at this map, the red area, as they said, is the 132 townhouses. If you look up at where all the trees are currently, that is designated on a map as Governor's Grant number 379. That, however, is not Governor's Grant property. That consists of 7.17 acres on which 104 apartments are to be built. Currently, as shown with the addition of the 132, they would have to build Chatham Drive out to Bel Air Drive. Then they would extend it to the very back of the property where we see the Bristol. Oh, okay. Okay. They would end Chatham Drive at that point at Bristol. Then, at such time as the 104 apartments are built where the trees are, then it would be up to that community, that apartment community, the developer, to build that stretch of Chatham out to meet Plantation Drive at 2 points and Chesapeake Drive into Governor's Grant community single-family houses. So that would be the closest distance for all those houses in the back of this 132, plus the apartments. It would be a short distance exiting into our small community with only one exit onto Atlanta Road. However, these people have multiple exits, not only to Atlanta Road, but they have an exit to Stein Highway. Okay? So you're really impinging on the Governor's Grant community heavily, ultimately. It's just a matter of time. This fellow who owns the trees with the tree lot, he's probably sitting back waiting for this all to be built out. Because then his cost
Use the microphone.
will be less. So I just wanted to give you, make a distinction between what's tagged Governor's Grant and what is actually Governor's Grant.
If you
Okay.
don't mind, I'll
Yeah.
clarify that, okay? There's two developments there. A lot of what you said is absolutely correct, okay? There's two developments. There's the Governor's Grant development, and there's the Bel Air development. Going back in history, Bel Air was annexed first, about 30 years ago. And it was annexed with about 100 single-family units and then the multifamily unit where you live, ma'am. It was annexed together as one, as the Bel Air development. It subsequently sold into two different developers, one developing single-family homes, one developing multifamily homes, similar to what you see there. The city's policy, let me continue with that. In the early 2000s, another developer came forward and annexed a block of land that is now Governor's Grant. It followed almost exactly the same track. They annexed it with two zonings, R1 and R3, the single-family homes and the multifamily homes. That developer then continued on with the single-family, and he sold that 7.35 acres to another developer. But they were all approved under the Governor's Grant development and Bel Air development respectively. Why that is important is because when both of those developments came through the approval process, they had to get approval from the fire marshal, the conservation district, and DelDOT. So those developments and the infrastructure at the time they were approved went through DelDOT and put in their entrance widths and geometries based on that amount of traffic, okay? The city has a phasing policy. So what you're looking at now, Bel Air, Brighton Drive and Bel Air Drive, is phase one of the residential area, okay? So we make them put in those stub roads and all the infrastructure to a certain point under phase one. Phase two of the residential district will be most of what's left. That's when the roads will be extended, kind of as you said, to the property lines. We have a phasing plan that's approved by the city council. All of these pieces have phasing plans, just like the townhome community in Bel Air. Phase one was just that L-shaped piece. And with each phase, they put in certain portions of the infrastructure. So these roads will develop over time as the master plan shows. Does that make sense?
That's what I understood. I'm not sure what the distinction between what I said and you is, but maybe that's okay.
Well, you kind of intimated, and what I thought we needed to clear up was that, you know,
How
with...
that came to be.
No, with all the access points the other development has, yours doesn't have as much. That may well be true, but it was designed for the cars and traffic that were proposed based on the development that was presented.
However, even at that point, had you just built the 104 apartments in that 7.7 acres, with they would not have built an outlet to Bel Air, obviously, because it makes sense. And that would have been a very heavy impact even back then on
I get your point. I don't disagree that until all the interconnections to the road network are completed, it can be seem somewhat unbalanced. I understand your point.
Why would we build all these places, have all these people, 208 people, more than that, on average, all these vehicles cramped on 7.7 acres with, people on top of people in our backyard, and then they're all going to narrow through our little streets and out to on Atlanta Road, you've got 404 plus 96. Okay, you've got 400 cars exiting from one entrance and one outlet.
I understand your point.
That makes no sense, and it still makes no sense because now we're compounding it by 535% with the addition of 209 townhouses and 104 apartments. And you can add up all those people, and it's going to be a sea of wall-to-wall people, cars, you name it. It's,
Okay, we have you noted. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next question.
I wanted to get my chance.
My name is Steve Mayer. I live in Governor's Grant, Chesapeake Drive. Help me understand the tree line. I heard earlier about, was it Chatham's Drive? Chat is going to come all the way through. That's right through the trees.
Yeah.
So if I'm not mistaken, we're going to come all the way through the trees. So maybe I'm kind of lost here. It's the trees, Governor's Grant, or is it Bel Air?
It's the apartments.
Ma'am.
So it is Bel Air.
We'll let him ask the questions and we'll let us answer them, please.
What I've known to come is it's part of Bel Air, if I'm not.
Okay, I'm going to approach the map
Yeah,
just to
please.
point it out. This is, as the building official stated, this is Chatham Drive. It's slated to be extended to here and then interconnect in this multifamily development.
Wait a minute, you just went toward Chesapeake.
This way,
It goes both ways.
it goes this way, yeah, and this will be a part.
That wasn't what said was earlier. That did not say that earlier, it says going to Chapman, nothing about Chesapeake. State the minutes if you want, but it did not say anything about going to Chesapeake. It says going to Chapman.
It goes this way and interconnects.
What's that now?
It follows this route and interconnects into this development.
Yes.
And this development will interconnect into this cul-de-sac. Cul-de-sac will continue on, okay? These trees have grown up over time,
Sure.
okay? So for them to develop, they'll remove the trees. Does that answer that question?
To answer the question, I just got a concern of the development, what I heard, of connecting the two developments.
Yeah, they are proposed to interconnect.
Now,
I'm listening to both of you. Let me just make a statement here
sorry.
real quick, just to clear things up. So, Steve, he's saying that it's gonna go up to the trees. But based on the development of the highlighted red area, they're not gonna go through the trees and turn left and connect to Chesapeake Drive until the tree area project is developed. So for now, it'll just extend into that red area if this red area project is developed, and then it'll stop. It won't go any further and it won't turn left until that tree area project is developed, if that ever happens.
yeah, and I understand, but go back to the aerial view, please. The concern I got is, when this does happen, you got a tree line backing up to Governor's Grant houses, and we're talking about multifamily housing, which is, townhouses, correct?
Mhm.
I don't see anybody representing the fire service here, because I thought we always had somebody that, sat on the planning and zoning from the fire company. Is that gonna be okay, of these houses, and you got multiple backed up to that?
Well, to help you understand that, the representative from the fire company, that's just I guess a personal preference that we do to help our own fire service see what happens. Anything that is developed as far as roads and anything involved with a fire apparatus as far as turning radius and being able to get through the streets, all of that has to go through a fire marshal approval. So it's all checklists prior to getting to us. It's just, we're just providing an extra convenience to our fire chief to be able to look it over and see if he sees anything.
I understand.
Yep.
But I'm looking at the red line area backed up even over to Bel Air, where these fine people have built houses, and they're gonna be backed up to multifamily all the way around, and I'm on Chesapeake. I do not want a townhouse, I'm gonna be honest with you, back there, so I got a concern.
Okay, well, that's why we're here, to hear your concerns, and they're definitely noted. And, I can't elaborate on whether we agree or disagree with you. But the only people that have the power to make those decisions are the council.
Okay.
So, that's why we're here, to get these things noted so that they can be aware of it and everybody's feelings.
One more question.
Okay.
Down at the other end is Bethany, I believe. There's a drive down to the end of Governor's Grant, which is Bethany Drive. Is it coming through?
Do you have anything on that, Mike?
Yeah, that apartments that'll interconnect Chesapeake, Bethany, and Chatham, correct.
I'm pretty sure years ago at one time, these developments were not supposed to connect, but here or there.
Okay, thank you. We'll go over here against the wall for the next question, and we'll get you next, sir.
Yes, my name is Cindy Cummings, and I live at 25 Crossgate, and I also am concerned about that. We're talking about the fire trucks and the ambulances. Fire trucks and ambulances still come down now, Crossgate Drive, to get back to Bel Air, what's there existing, and it's a problem. Okay, so, and no police come out there. We just have fire trucks, ambulances, that type of thing, and we're concerned about that.
Okay, thank you. Gentleman standing at the back door.
Good evening. I'm Gary Shepard. I live at 404 Plantation Drive. My main concern is just all the traffic that's going to go through there. I mean, I have two small children, and a lot of other people in the neighborhood have small children, just like in Bel Air. And with the concern with all the vehicles that are going to go through there, that's a danger to a lot of kids. And I mean, a lot of us paid our hard-earned money to live in quiet neighborhoods, and then we see what we have here. So I don't know. It's just seems the rights of a lot of people are going to be trampled on. That's just what I see. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Your point well taken. Is there anyone else out there that has questions? Okay, go ahead, sir. We got a gentleman in the corner next over here.
I'm Tim Smith, 755 Atlanta Road, which is in the city limits on Atlanta Road. And I'm speaking for myself and other neighbors and people on Atlanta Road. Our request would be that we don't increase the density of anything further because of the traffic issues and the safety issues that have already been mentioned, specifically on Atlanta Road, which is going to be impacted by additional density approvals in any of these developments that we're talking about. So that would be my request.
Okay, thank you. So while she's getting the mic over to that gentleman there, just to make a point, sir, before you start your question, the first item that we looked at tonight is our city trying to be proactive. And if you go back to those numbers, we're decreasing everything across the board as far as that goes. We can't legally, I mean, zonings are zonings, and we can't legally stop people from building things that meet current zoning restriction or requirements, I should say. And so, you know, with that being said, we are bound, you know, if someone brings a project that meets all the requirements, then they legally have the right to do that. But I think we should, you know, the questions are somewhat becoming repetitive. So just to say this, we see the city officials trying to be proactive and decreasing all of those numbers to kind of help this. So I think we should, you know, be thankful and applaud them for that. And so that being said, we'll keep moving forward. Sir, with your question.
My name's Carl Granquist, and I live at 401 Plantation Drive. And right now, the children that go on the school bus go up to the entrance to Governor's Grant, and that's also where they're let out in the evening. So if we increase the traffic in that area, that's going to be a danger to those children waiting and coming off the buses.
Okay, thank you very much. You've spoken on this item. Now, you've spoken on this so far, so.
Good evening. My name is Tom Mclaughlin. I live at 815 Magnolia Drive on Seaford, Delaware. My concern is that, and I don't want to talk about the traffic problem because we pretty much know what it is, and I'm not going to waste your time with that. My concern is, who's paying for this? Is it government subsidized?
Okay. Well, your question is noted, and here's what we're going to do. We do have the developers here tonight, so we have a second part to this, and once we get through this part, when we get to the next part of this, I'm going to have them come up and they can speak on the nature of the project and where it's going and what these townhouses will actually be and who will be eligible to purchase or, you know, whatever with those. So we'll cover your question on the next item. Is that good?
That'll be fine, as long as it gets answered.
Okay. All right, any other questions here? Right behind you. Right here. Raise your hand again, ma'am.
Janice Foster, 321 Plantation. I know there's not enough representatives here tonight, but I dare say if you took a poll, everyone who lived in Governor's Grant and Bel Air, there would be not one person that would approve the change from the R1 to the R3.
You got everybody? Okay. All right, we're good on online? All right, so we're going to keep moving, Mike.
All right, so moving on to new business number 3. It's Bel Air Investments LLC. It's also located on Danfield Drive, Bristol Drive, Chatham Drive, Trey Street, and Banbury Street. Tax map and parcel numbers 531-10.00-47.00 through 464.00. And they're proposing a zoning of R3 high-density residential for this project. They're requesting a sketch plan review of 51 lots to be redeveloped into 132 townhomes. And there's the same picture again. It's the same area we've been discussing this evening, highlighted the outline there in red. And we did receive the sketch site plan of the proposed townhome development to go in there. Like I said, it consists of 132 townhomes. They will extend the water and sewer into the property because it's not there currently. Stormwater will be available on site. That'll all have to be reworked as well. And it requires new approvals from the State Fire Marshal, Sussex Conservation, DELDOT, and the city engineer for the stormwater. So DELDOT, they'll have to go through all these state agencies before they come back for a final approval to meet all their requirements as well. It's a very basic site plan. I looked over it briefly. There's like 6 to 7 units per building. They're varied throughout the site. And they do meet the current regulations that, and from what I understand, they'll look very similar to what's existing in Bel Air currently.
Okay, let's handle this way. Let's get the developer in here,
Okay.
all right? And then we're gonna go from there. So, sir, just speak on your project a little bit. Give us a little insight on it. We've had a couple questions asked already about the nature of it, and hoping maybe if you give us some insight first, and that'll cover some of the questions and things.
Happy to, and I apologize. We struggled hearing out there, so if I'm repetitive or if just wanted to make that clear. We tried to hear as best we could.
Okay.
I mean, relatively straightforward. Effectively, what we're attempting to do, what we would like to do, is just an extension of the 77 townhomes that were recently approved, are in for permit, which we should have, and should be starting in the very near future. So I think as Mike already mentioned, they'd be packs of 6 to 8 townhomes. They're roughly 15,000 square feet, all 3-bed, 2-bath units. And then architecturally, they would look very similar to what's existing in the existing townhome portion of Bel Air.
Okay. Let me start off with a few questions.
Sure.
So you're going away from the original plan that the development, I'm going to call it, Bel Air, was laid out to do.
That's correct.
My first question is, what is the reason for that? Are they finding that they're having a hard time selling the single-family homes out there, or is it just I'm going to put as much on the spot that I can?
Well, it's the first point that you brought up, and we'll actually be purchasing this piece of land from the current developer who has been selling single-family home lots to builders over the past several years. I think you could see the progress so far. I don't think they've built very many in the past several years. There hasn't been a demand for it. We're confident in the product that we're going to be building. So it was really economic feasibility was the reason for moving to this model and market conditions.
Okay. So we had a gentleman who asked a question of share with us, I guess, who will move into these apartments? Is it, his exact question was, is it government subsidized
They're
or
not government subsidized. They will be market rate rentals. Sorry, they will not be government subsidized. They will be market rate rental townhomes. Yes, ma'am. That is our plan.
No, not rental. Rental. You gotta be kidding me.
Okay, sir, why don't you have a seat right there, and we'll get some questions in if we need to.
Sure. Thank you.
So does the commission have any other questions? Does anybody here?
Yeah, I do have a question. So you want to rezone from R1 to R3. In the process, take this from 51 to 132. There's a large disparity in that number, and I'm just wondering how you got to that.
Understood. Again, it's extrapolating. Would you like to-
Yeah, you got to
Yes,
hit back
please.
up there. Sorry, I might have set you down too premature.
That's no problem.
Sorry about that.
It's really just building off Again, the 77 that were previously approved, we have a design that works for us. So it's just taking that and building effectively an extension of that. And it's also frankly economics with rising building costs, cost of land in order to do something there. That was the density that kind of worked, and that was a layout that kind of worked.
I mean, I fully understand the economic part of it. I fully understand maximizing your profit and your, you know, ability to build this out to the maximum. But I was part of, I was sitting here when this plan originated, and
Yes, sir.
before there was ever a dirt stone overturned in Bel Air. And leaving emotions aside, I had concern for Woodside Manor folks at that time. You know, just feeling like we were connecting to them, and we were going to create a huge impact on their community. And yeah, you had access to Atlanta Road, but I felt as though that depending on where you were coming from and where you were trying to get to, Woodside Manor was an easy route to take a shortcut, for lack of a better term. And I just am having a hard time wrapping my arms around the fact that we're going away from the original plan, I guess. And there was so many concerns then, and I just think that there's this rises, you know, the concern level to a all-time high. But anyway, that's our opinion on it, or my opinion. I don't want to speak on someone else's behalf. So if we don't have any other questions up here at the front table, then we'll move to public, and I'll give some folks a chance to speak on this.
May I comment on one other thing, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I don't mean to open up Pandora's box here, and feel free to shoot me down if this is completely off the table. But if there were a way to build out our plan without connecting to Governor's grant, that's something that would be amenable to us. So if it's a way that we could get that approved with DelDOT, with the fire marshal, that's something that we would be fine with, and I think would maybe alleviate some concerns from the citizens in the room.
Okay.
Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. So hang out here in the room
Yeah.
in case we do need some more input from you.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Wilson. I live in Bel Air townhomes, and I own my townhome. I'm concerned about the rentals because what will happen with property value? I mean, and then rental, being that I'm also the president of the HOA Association, I mean, we have a lot of trouble with the rental units because they don't want to abide by the rules because we do have bylaws. Are the rentals going to be required to abide by the bylaws?
So they will not be part of that HOA, is my understanding.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's including the 77 units that you're building there?
Yes, ma'am.
Pam, did you have a question?
Yeah, we bought our home there because we thought it was a family neighborhood. Like you, if I wanted to live in a rental place, I would have went to an apartment. I don't want to live with 100 and something rental units, and then we have no safety. Already we don't have the police, we don't have a lot, and then you're going to give us all these townhomes for rental with no supervision at all, no recourse, no HOA, no nothing. What about the people in the houses? What about the people in Magnolia? What about all those homes? You're going to put rental people in all these units with nothing for the homeowner?
Okay.
That's our property value.
All right, ma'am. We're going to move on. Let's try to. I understand the emotional part of all of this, and we get it, and you know, but let's try to keep it to questions, hopefully, and things like that. And so, does anybody else have a question? I guess I'm gonna give you one more shot, ma'am.
Why Were we not informed on Charlotte Wayne, 315 Plantation Drive, this is for the city, why were we not informed that these were going to be rentals?
Okay.
Because I have spoken with several people, I've read everything, I've done extensive research, and no one ever mentioned to me.
Okay, let me, before we go any further, let me address your question directly, okay? The city of Seaford has a zoning ordinance, which this body is in charge of. The building official and his staff are in force, okay? The zoning ordinance talks about setbacks, uses, things of that nature. It does not get into ownership issues. The city cannot control the form of ownership of any property, okay? We don't say we will allow a certain type of ownership, yet not another type of ownership. Do you understand where that might head? Let me finish just for a second, okay? What you're looking at here is the use of a piece of land. Is it, in their opinion, and in the council's opinion, is it that the appropriate use? Does it fit into the area? Is the area infrastructure capable of handling it? Okay? Not the specifics of who lives there, so on and so forth, okay? Everybody has equal housing rights. We control how the house is built, how it's set back, all right? I want to point out one other thing, too. If you rezone this piece of land, okay, it then has that zone. And what you need to think about and look at, what we think about and look at, is what is the maximum density that's permitted on that property. This developer has been kind enough to show us a plan. That might not get built, okay? That plan could go away, could change. He can build, he has the right, if it's rezoned, to build up to the maximum density that's permitted by our code on that property. He has the right, okay? So those are the things you need to think about is what is that maximum density, can that area handle it? The other thing I'll say is we can talk about what his form of ownership, he's been very honest with us and we appreciate that. This developer may not develop this. Another developer may come along, okay? Once this plan is approved, once the zoning is changed, it's just an administrative permit issuance by our building official. If this developer goes away, this developer has a different idea for development. As long as he meets our technical codes, he can build that, just like your own home. As if you want to add a deck to your house, as long as you meet the setbacks, you submit the permits, submit the information for the permits, we issue you a permit because as the chairman stated, that's our responsibility. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfectly, and I understood that actually. However, having said that, if this gentleman hadn't been kind enough and straightforward enough to admit that they're rentals, then in essence, he can come back and say, and I mean, nothing you can do about it or we can do about it, but I just want to make this clear. What happens to that land is up for grabs to be used for anything. Because
No,
in
ma'am.
fact, he can say, I want to build these houses, and when he comes before or another company, oh no, they're going to be owner occupied, whatever. They're not going to be rentals. And you give approval, well then if he then makes them rentals, there's no recourse. So in effect, if you approve this R3, they can be high density of whatever nature, depending on whether the person wants to be honest when they make their proposal.
I think, and we're talking along the same lines, I think the way we have to say it here is that if it does get rezoned, it has to be what's permitted in the code. It's called a use by right. That's the only thing it can be. It can't, the form of ownership has nothing to do with the zoning ordinance. But as long as he builds it in accordance with the use that's approved, he has that right. All property owners have that right.
Why would you, your number one item under housing in your comprehensive plan is build more single-family homes. Why would you want to consider, regardless of whether the rentals owned, whatever?
Ma'am, I'll speak on our behalf up here, because Charles is the city manager. We, and I'm speaking about myself and conversations that I've had with other members of the commission. You're saying, why would we want it? We never stated that we want it. It's not about whether we want it or don't want it. It's about what is legally allowed. we cannot change the laws. We cannot make the laws.
I
And it-
realize that. I'm just saying, depending on what his pitch had been, might have made a difference in your decision.
we're legally not allowed to do that.
In other words, if he said they're gonna be ownership, then, you know, once he said rentals, like, you could feel the air.
We're legally not allowed to do that.
This is so, bottom line is,
Okay, we have a gentleman has a question back here.
So, once this is all established and you've got your plans and everything, can they change it and it become government subsidy rentals? Can it be changed down the road?
Charles will speak on that.
Yeah, what I can say to you is we do not get into, during our building permit process or approval process, we do not get into how projects are financed, who finances them. That's not our responsibility.
So it could become low-income rentals, government subsidized,
Well,
if they want to change it.
And let me say something here, okay? And you talked about our comprehensive plan. What we want, our city wants in our comprehensive plan, we want fair housing for everyone, okay? We want a multitude of housing types, housing opportunities for, socioeconomic, a broad range of people, workforce housing, all those kinds of things. And we just look at the density, where it's placed, how it's placed. We don't get into who finances it or anything of that nature, because if you do that, you can get into housing discrimination.
So what you're saying in effect is it can become low-income rental properties.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not an expert on how all that works, okay? But yes, the answer to that question is that projects like this, we don't control that. We don't even ask that question. That's not, we ask, how is it built? What does it look like? What materials? What does the foundation look like? What are the setbacks? Does it comply with the zoning ordinance? Not who finances it, not who's moving in.
just one other question.
You're going to have to ask the chairman if he's going to permit you to speak.
Ma'am, I've given you every chance, and you speak out of turn. You got this gentleman back here asking the question. You're having a side conversation with the lady in front of you. I'm not going to recognize you anymore.
I apologize, I'm very sorry.
Can you just please state your name and your address for the record?
Yes, my name is Gene Crockett. I live on 411 Plantation Drive.
Thank you. And I think we got a question over here.
Yeah, I think what's scaring everybody is the rentals. We had 3 rentals in Governor's Grant, okay? The Seaford Police at one rental was there 7 to 8 times. The State Police was there twice. Thank God they're not there no more because the owners didn't renew the lease. And the crowd that was going there, it was like a flop house. That's what I think is scaring a lot of people with rentals. I'm not saying the people that's gonna rent them are bad, but you don't know what you're gonna get.
Thank you.
George near 121 William Ross Lane.
Okay, and just to reiterate here, what we're doing tonight is we're sending a recommendation. What you're asking us to do is to shoot this down, is basically what I'm hearing from everybody. We don't have that ability. City Council has the ability to make a decision and decide whether it fits their plan, whether it fits everything that Bel Air was originally laid out to be. I appreciate all the comments and everything, and just to know that they are noted, they're recorded, City Council reads over them before their meeting, but on September 22nd, that's when the decision is made whether this project moves forward or not. We just don't have that power, so, you have something to add, sir?
Just one question, I guess legally, you could still leave it as the current zone it is, so it's required to build houses instead of apartments.
Yes.
So there's no law that says you can't leave it the way it is.
Yeah, we could only make a recommendation on that second item, as far as the rezoning. And the city council can, you know, decide, hey, we don't want to rezone this for whatever reason or not. But we can't. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
That's because of all of their neighbors, the governor's grant. I don't think anybody out there wants to see apartments. You want to build 50-some houses and tickle us to death, not apartments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Janice Foster, 321 Plantation Drive. I appreciate what Mr. Anderson said about trying to get housing that's equitable for most everyone to be able to obtain. However, why do we need, is Seaford in need of that many apartment townhouses in the middle, right in the very center of single-family homes all around? Are we in need of that many? There are a lot of places in Seaford to live already in apartment houses and complexes. Why do we have to rezone to allow them to be right in the middle of our homes? Can there not be another area that they could go build those 132 apartment houses someplace else? Why does it need to be in our
And to answer your question, our city officials and we didn't seek this gentleman out. We don't go out and solicit contractors to build apartments or contractors to come in and rezone things. We don't, they come to the city. We don't go out and seek that. I don't think the feeling, I shared some conversations with the current mayor, and I can tell you based on our conversations that we're not seeking out contractors, and we're not in need of apartments and things like that. That is not, the city doesn't have any power to go out and say, hey, come build some apartments in our town. These people come to us, and we can only control, and we have to do our due diligence, and we have a right to, if someone submits an application to rezone, then we have to follow that process. If they submit an application to present a sketch site plan, which we got here, we have to follow that process. We're not seeking this out. The city does not, and don't be, and I'm not speaking out of turn here, but we're not, this is not what the city is seeking this out. This is what comes to us.
I didn't think that you were seeking that out. I was just asking the question, does Seaford need those? But anyway, and I think if you did take a poll of every resident in that, as I said before, you would find out there is not one single person that would want it rezoned from R1 to R3. We don't need it, we don't want it.
Can I speak as a member?
Duly noted. Thank you.
Can I speak as a member of the commission?
Yeah, let me get her first, and then we'll.
Thank you. Charlotte Wilson, Rosemary Drive, Bel Air. My question is, okay, say all this is approved. What type of amenities are going to be available? Because I can see all these kids roaming the streets, everybody going up and down, stealing or doing all kinds of stuff in the neighborhood to the people that own. What are they going to have there? What type of facilities are they going to have to entertain the youth?
Yes, sir.
So on the plan as submitted, there are no amenities. However, we are in negotiations with the current landowner that we're under contract to purchase this piece of property from, to buy 3 more of his lots to put a pool and clubhouse that would service the community.
All right, so let me ask you a question as a spinoff to her question.
Sure.
So, and I've been working on this since we started talking about this tonight. I guess when she initially asked the question of you about would your apartments be participating in a homeowners association somehow, and your statement was no. But now you're going to purchase other land within the Bel Air concept. I get it that it's just a piece of property, and you don't have a development like some folks have. You're part of a city, you're tied into the other ones, so, I don't know how many people are familiar with the area, but Rivers End is a landlocked It's their own development. They can only do what the homeowner association says. He's buying a property, basically, you guys have created a homeowners association with the folks that live out there, but technically you don't have any rights to that piece of property that he's going to. But to you, sir, you don't feel the need to participate in our homeowners association, but you are going to buy additional land to provide amenities. That are those amenities going to be offered to these folks, or is it just this red area that you're developing?
We hadn't thought about it, but if it's important to that community, we can certainly make them available. We would make them available. And just to elaborate maybe on the HOA question, frankly, I'm not sure you would want us as part of your HOA, because at that point, we would become the majority of your HOA, and potentially you would lose some ability, to make decisions that you thought was best for your section of the community. So, and not saying that we would do anything that's detrimental to you, it certainly wouldn't be our intention, but, just throw that thought out there. But to answer your question directly, hadn't thought about it, but it's certainly something we would be willing to do.
So help me
and we would commit to.
So help me understand this too. How,
Sure.
if you do get to that point, you build your project, you're going to build your playground and your pool. Have you put any thought into how you're going to control who uses that facility and how you maintain that? I mean, are you going to create a barrier around just your plot? Is that legal, Charles, to do within the city?
I mean, to answer your question directly, yeah, as long as they met the requirement, when you say barrier, as an example being fencing, they can fence the property in, because this is what I'm understanding from the gentleman is, this is going to be a single lot under one ownership with multiple townhouses on it for rental. So we would have an owner. He could certainly fence that in accordance with our fencing regulations. But there's issues of traffic, ingress and egress and all that kind of stuff. So we would work with them if they decided to fence it in.
I mean, it would almost, because of the structure of the roads and the interconnectivity of the roads and things, it almost have to be some sort of gated community.
If it were to be completely fenced in, yeah. We don't, I mean, what we see in a lot of similar places like this is they'll fence in three sides, things like that. We do have some gated communities. The townhouse condominium down along the river is a gated community. Yeah. Those residents love that. They really do.
But they don't have any interconnectivity to other stuff.
They come in and out onto Water Street, but no, they're their own little community. It's a growing community. They have a pool.
Okay. All right. So let me just close this public part. Does anyone else from the public have a question or comment? Give her a second to get the mic for you.
Name is James Logan. I live at 324 Plantation Drive. I looked at the map out here. It's also the one he had on the wall. It's gone now. But they have a retention pond area of 1.2 acres and recreation area. Doesn't look like that's planned out very well. We have 2 ponds in our neighborhood. You guys, they have, in Bel Air now, they have recreational, they have ponds too. But I don't see with, I think I counted 15 buildings. Is that right? I don't think you've got enough water pond area for the runoff.
So how far is your plan along?
And to put in recreation.
So how far along is your plan? Have you met with the Conservation District or anything? Or
No, we've not. This is a concept plan. We worked through it, obviously, with our engineer, felt that the stormwater design was appropriate. Obviously, it requires a lot more refinement, and there'll be, to his point, we'll have to go and work with the Conservation District, meet all of their requirements before we have final plan approval. So it is just a concept. It is not finalized, and it will be a requirement of us to make sure that there's adequate stormwater management on site to handle what we're building.
So, sir, their plan would, if it moves forward from this this phase, it would have to come back to this commission and also the council at least
I guess
two
what I'm saying-
times.
I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think they thought that part out. I think there's a lot there that I don't think they thought through, and it's bringing it to us, you guys, to say, can we have this?
Well,
They're not telling me what they got.
Well, until they get to the next phase, if that's the case, then they can't have it. I mean, because when it comes back the next time, it has to meet some of these approvals that are listed down the side of this slide here. And it can't even, it won't even get in the door unless it has some of those things. So, excuse me, there is a checklist for that. You know, what we're doing tonight is just to find out if, well, what we're doing tonight is just sending a recommendation to council. Then we're going to find out if the council even, you know, is on board with this. So, all right, how we doing with the online? We have any online stuff? We're good? All right, I'm going to give Rick, I'm going to go back to the commission side, give Rick a chance here. He's developed a question.
It's more of a statement.
Okay.
As a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission for quite a few years, just so everybody in this room understands what our obligation is, okay? Our obligation is to say there's an individual, a company who wants to make a change in a zone. The first thing we have to do is to say, is that in the code legal? Okay? Not do I like it, not do I not like it, is there too many cars? What's going to happen? Is it legal to make this change? That's our obligation. And the second one is, the second item down is a sketch plan review, which was talked about. There's a lot of things. This is the first time anybody gets to see this. We have seen many sketch plan reviews change drastically from the start to the final end. And that doesn't mean that those 12 buildings don't stay exactly where they are, or they may change. But our charge as planning and zoning is to answer the question, is it legal? Okay? Not do we like it, is it legal? And we don't approve anything more than sending a recommendation to the city council to say, we have reviewed this proposal, all of these proposals, month by month. They're legal. City council, our recommendation is it's legal. You decide, based on probably 15 or 20 pages of comments tonight, is legal enough for it to be approved. And given the fact that it's zoning, it's legal, and the sketch plan site review is just one step of 3 or 4 different opportunities for change. And as a member of planning and zoning, again, having been here for a while, my charge is to say, is it legal? Okay? I didn't say whether I liked it or I didn't like it. My charge is to say, is it legal? Based on that, that's the recommendation we send to the city council. Is it legal? Like I said, as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I feel that it's our opportunity to say the city's code is this. Someone has made a recommendation to change zoning. Is it legal? Okay? That's what we do. That's how we operate. We've listened to all of the comments, and all of those comments will end up with the city council. And they will then make a determination on whether it's legal and it's wanted. As somebody asked, did you want it? Well, we don't do want. We do legal. And that's what we do. So I just wanted
All right.
to make that.
Thank you, Rick. So Mike, you move us forward now? All right, so at this time, we're going to close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and we're going to reopen the regular meeting.
Okay, so we're going back to agenda item number 1, the findings of facts, and its proposed amendments to the R3 high-density residential. The proposal for site area is going from 1 acre to 4 acres. Dwelling units per acre to go from 14 to 10. Dwelling units per building going from 18 to 12. The building setback line going from 25 feet to 50 feet. Site coverage, adding a line about proposed paved area shall not exceed 15% of the total site area. Side yard lines going from 20 feet to 50 feet for building separation. We're going minimum distance between any building and unit of 25 feet. Rear yards, we're going from 20 to 50 feet. Habitable floor area from 450 to 1,000 for 2-bedroom units, and from 600 to 1,200 for more than 2-bedroom units. We're adding a requirement for exterior materials to be of approved stone masonry material. We're adding for site amenities to every development for a community center, at least 1,200 square feet, a fenced play area or neighborhood park with play equipment for the use of the residents, a minimum of 3 acres, walking trails, site fixtures, benches, trash cans, and other features. And we're adding safety and security, a proposed community-wide camera system serving all common and parking areas of the site to be required, and fencing of the entire site is to be also required. And planning and zoning is to make a recommendation to council on these proposed code amendments.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a recommendation to approve the proposed revisions to Division 3 High-Density Residential District as presented in tonight's finding of facts.
I second it.
Hey, Shannon?
Mr. Pickenpaul,
Based on finding and facts, I agree.
Mr. Temple,
I approve based on findings and facts.
Mr. Peterson,
I approve based on findings of facts.
Mr. Schaefer,
I approve based on finding of facts.
and Ms. Spicer.
I approve based on the finding of fact.
All right, thank you, guys. Move on to number 2, please, Mike.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, the findings of facts. The project is for Bel Air Investments LLC, located on Danfield Drive, Bristol Drive, Chatham Drive, Trey Street, Banbury Street. Tax map and parcels 531-10.00-407.00 through 464.00. Current zoning is R1, low density residential. They're requesting to rezone 51 single-family lots from R1, low density residential, to R3, high density residential, to accommodate the proposed building of 132 townhomes. Planning and zoning is to make a recommendation to council about this rezoning.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Based on the existing city code, I approve the rezoning request from R1 to R3.
I second it.
Mr. Pickenpaul,
Based on findings and facts, I agree.
Mr. Temple,
I approve based on findings of fact.
Mr. Peterson,
I approve based on findings of fact.
Mr. Schaefer,
I approve based on finding of facts.
and Ms. Spicer.
Based on the city code, I approve based on the finding of fact. However, I'd like to put a caveat on it. I'd like to see the integrity of Seaford maintained here. I think going from 51 single-family dwellings to 132 is excessive for the space.
Okay, so we have to go back to the original motion, which was Mr. Peterson's. Mr. Peterson, do you agree with adding this to your motion?
I will agree to allow her comment about the number change to be included in her response to the city council.
Okay, so then the vote will remain the same. All right, number 3, Mike.
All right, agenda item number 3, the findings of facts. This project is Bel Air Investments LLC, located Danfield Drive, Bristol Drive, Chatham Drive, Trey Street, and Banbury Street. Tax map and parcel numbers 531-10.00-407.00 407.00 through 464.00. Proposed zoning is R3 high-density residential, and they are looking to redevelop 51 existing single-family lots into 132 townhomes. Water and sewer is to be extended into the property. Stormwater will be on site, and they require new approvals from the State Fire Marshal, Sussex Conservation, DelDOT, and our city engineer for the stormwater system interconnection. And planning and zoning is to make a recommendation to council about this.
Okay, again, I'll entertain a motion for item number 3.
I recommend approval of the sketch plan review as presented in tonight's finding of fact.
Anyone want a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. Pickenpall?
Hey, Shannon,
Yes.
let me ask this, before we vote this time, does anyone have any interest in adding to this?
Yeah, I have an interest. My comment on this would be the same as my previous comment.
So, Mr. Peterson, are you fine with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, now we'll vote.
I'm also in agreement with Ms. Spicer, that is a large number to try and, going from 51, a balanced community, with all that being said, I do approve based on finding of facts.
And Mr.
with the
Peterson, are
caveat.
you okay with Mr. Pickenpall's comment being added?
I am.
Okay.
Mr. Temple?
I approve based on findings of fact.
Mr. Peterson?
I approve based on findings of fact.
Mr. Schaefer?
I approve based on finding of facts.
And Ms. Spicer?
And I do approve based on the finding of fact.
Okay, sir, so we are sending a favorable recommendation based on the findings of facts with the attached comments. And so, good luck with your project.
Thank you for your feedback, and thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. So at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
I second.
Meeting adjourned.